The announcement we have all been waiting for has finally arrived. EJ Liddell has declared for the NBA draft. On today's show, we'll break down what this means for EJ Liddell, what he brings to an NBA team, and how Ohio State fills his shoes. All that and more right here on Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes, part of Locked on Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, March 28th in the year 2022. And today's episode of Locked on Buckeyes is brought to you by Stat Hero. Stat Hero is reshaping the way you play fantasy sports. Dozens of house-based games to play daily. No sharks, no funky props, just your skill versus the lineups you choose. Sign up today at stathero.com/locked-on. I would also like to thank everyone out there for making Locked on Buckeyes their first listen or first watch of every single day. Going into the season, many people thought and believed this would be EJ Liddell's final year in Columbus. Throughout the year, Chris Holtmann did not shy away from making statements that made people believe and kind of confirmed that this would be Liddell's final year. But of course, what the coach says is great. But until that official announcement comes from the player, people may say, well, there is still a little bit of hope. There is still a slight bit of belief that he might return to Columbus. That's not the case. EJ Liddell has declared for the upcoming NBA draft, and this is a phenomenal move in this young man's career. A man that over the past 3 years has been a phenomenal Buckeye. He has grown as a human being. He has also grown as a basketball player. Liddell, if you think about what happened, his growth and progression from his freshman year to his sophomore year to his junior year, you saw a growth as a basketball player. You saw growth as a human being. You saw growth as a leader. 6'7", 240-pound forward from Belleville, Illinois. This young man had a phenomenal junior year, upped his stats in almost every single category, from 16 points a game last year to 19 points a game this year, from 1.1 blocks per game last year to 2.6 blocks per game this year, from 1.8 assists per game last year to 2.5 this year, from 6.7 rebounds per game last year to 7.9 rebounds per game this year. We can keep going statistically. Field goal percentage went up. 2-point field goal percentage went up. 3-point field goal percentage went up. Free throw shooting percentage went up. He went up in almost every single category. And those are just your general basic statistics. Now, if you want to go to the analytics route, you can see the same thing there. He got better with his body and his conditioning, and he got more in shape and chiseled out and looked like he had leaned out a little bit. That's the word I was looking for. He had leaned out a little bit. But what we saw on the court this year, aside from him leaning out and getting in better shape, aside from the numbers that he put up on the court, he was the ultimate leader that Ohio State needed. A team that after losing Dwayne Washington Jr. to the NBA draft a year ago, or to the NBA a year ago, people were wondering, we know Liddell can be that guy. We know Liddell is great. He's a great college basketball player. But is there another level he can go to? I mean, it's always a thought when someone averages a certain level of points and has numbers like he did his sophomore year. We all wonder, can he get better? How much better can he get? And it did not take very long this year to realize that EJ Liddell got a whole lot better throughout this season. He finishes his career on a streak that is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. His final 43 games that he played in college, he scored at least 10 points. Think about all the guys who think about they have shooting struggles and they have shooting slumps and they just have issues during a game or two putting the ball in the basket. You may say, well, they didn't really put the ball in the basket. There was no way that they had 10 points. Maybe they had 8. Maybe they had 5. Things happen. Even during Liddell's bad games, he still had at least 10 points per game. Liddell, the basketball player, we got to see Malachi Branham be able to be a better player because of EJ Liddell. And I believe Branham got to watch Liddell be a leader, be a basketball player, watch and see how he prepared for games and said, well, I want that for me. I want to be just like EJ. Well, you have guys like Kyle Young, Eugene Brown III, Jamari Wheeler, who was a leader at Penn State, but Jamari Wheeler had to come into Ohio State and figure out the Buckeyes' way of doing things, what it is Ohio State does. And Jamari Wheeler could look at EJ Liddell and what Liddell does, how he carries himself. And he says, if Liddell's doing this and he's the best player on the team, then how about I fit in where I need to be so this team can be successful? You had a guy like Joey Brunk coming in this year who had played for Chris Holtmann previously, 2 previous universities, but he had not been with Chris Holtmann in Columbus. And Joey Brunk could look at Liddell and say, this is how Liddell's doing everything. How about I do what he does or just follow the leader? We talk about the things on the court, which are great. He's great. He's a triple threat athlete, or 3-level athlete, get you in the mid-range, get you in the 3-point area, get you down low on the block as well. Defensively, very versatile. We've all seen his chase down blocks or blocks from behind that he has really patented throughout this season. Those are amazing as well. But there's so much of the leadership off the court and even on the court leadership that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. And that's one of those things that we'll always remember about EJ Liddell. Great on the court, but that smile, that Colgate-esque smile that he has, that's one of those things we'll always remember about EJ. Great player, phenomenal player, a player that Chris Holtmann could lead on when Ohio State needed a bucket. But also, Liddell was somebody that was the ultimate leader for Ohio State, and he was someone that during the wins, during the losses, you could see he was going to be up there to answer questions, to answer anything that may be hard thrown at him, because he was a leader of the Ohio State Buckeye basketball team. This is a great move for EJ Liddell. It's unfortunate that Ohio State loses him at this time, but we all knew at some point this good thing at Ohio State would eventually come to an end. With Liddell leaving and going to the NBA, of course, people are going to wonder, what does he bring to an NBA franchise? I mean, an NBA franchise where you have players from all over the world, not just the country, all over the world, where these players are coming to America to play basketball. Yes, basketball in Europe, basketball in Asia is probably different, or it is different than what you get from the NBA variety, but we're mixing the two brands of basketball together. From what you get in Europe and Asia, from that brand of basketball, to what you get when guys come to the NBA. A lot of guys say, well, the transition now from going from overseas to the NBA is a whole lot easier than it used to be. There are a lot of foreign-born players that are now in the National Basketball Association. I mean, think about your own team. Maybe you're a Cavs fan, or may it be you're a fan of a different team in the Midwest. May it be your team of the Miami Heat or Golden State Warriors or the Lakers, who are still not that good, or your team of the 76ers or the Brooklyn Nets or New York Knicks. Whoever it is you're a team of, think about your team and think about how many foreign-born players are on your favorite team. The transition is different for the foreign-born players. The transition is also a little bit easier for players that are born in the U.S. of A. But when it comes to Liddell, I kind of hinted at things a few things a little bit earlier. He's going to be a player that I think the transition is going to be easy. I won't say easy, not as hard as it would have been 20 years ago. No, the rules kind of favor the transition period now because, well, you can't touch anybody, and so the rules are more favorable for a player coming into the league. But granted, the league is faster. The league is you're playing with grown men, and so grown men's strength does come into effect. But Liddell brings the ability to be able to hit that three-point shot, a shot that in the NBA has grown to be very, very popular. Some say too popular, but it is still extremely popular. And Liddell's ability to be able to hit that shot, I think he'll be a person that will be towards the end of the bench. We'll say 8, 9, 10 men in the rotation. But as he gets his feet wet, as he gradually figures out this game, as he gradually figures things out on offense and on defense, as he gradually and slowly realizes the way that these grown men move, the way that these coaches operate, how he gets his time management down pat, I firmly think that Liddell, when it comes to his three-point shot, that's an asset that he has gotten a whole lot better at. Like I mentioned, this past year, he shot 37.4% from downtown at 6'7", 240 pounds. That's a great, phenomenal thing. Liddell's probably going to be the four man, a little bit undersized. Think of maybe of a, I won't say he's going to be a PJ Tucker type player. I am horrible with player comps. But if you think of a guy like PJ Tucker who's coming in, and of course you remember what PJ Tucker was of late over the past few years, or the last few years, he was really giving great contribution to an NBA team. Defense and three-point shooting. Now, I don't think Liddell will stand in the corner as much as PJ Tucker was on offense. However, I do think that would be something where Liddell can make his staple. Defense and three-point shooting. Now, you may say, Jay, he was not a 3-and-D guy in college. This is true. But as you have seen with Eugene Brown III and other players that are at Ohio State specifically, some of them transition from their high school days and realize my role with this team is not the role that it was at the previous level that I played. So I got to fit in where the coach needs me to fit in to make sure this team is successful. Liddell's three-point shooting is great. Teams, an NBA team, whatever NBA team is going to get him, they're going to realize Liddell is a player that is not going to shy away from the big moment. Liddell's not a player that is going to be a little hesitant to be able to, when it comes to taking big shots. Liddell's somebody that, via his mid-range game and his turnaround jump shot, that's one thing that people in the NBA are going to be like, wait, so this kid can get you and hurt you at all three levels. He's gotten a whole lot better at utilizing angles on the basketball court, on the block very, very well, using the glass, knowing how to use his undersized frame. Well, not say lack of height. Don't say undersized frame. Lack of height when he's playing guys that are taller than him, knowing how to use his quickness to get around them, knowing how to use the fadeaway jumper when he creates the proper space. These are all things Liddell's going to be phenomenal at in the NBA. Now, one thing I don't know is how quickly he'll get acclimated to the NBA basketball. I don't. Yes, I did say it was easier now. It's easier now to get acclimated to professional basketball than it was 20 years ago. The rules kind of help that. The coaches help that. We're going to have some younger coaches that are going to be able to help Liddell get a little bit more acclimated. One thing I did recently, listen to the Knuckleheads podcast with Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson. They had Tracy McGrady on. I was a little behind with this one. This came out, I believe, a week ago. But Tracy McGrady talked about his first year in Toronto when he was fresh out of high school. And he said that the first coach in Toronto, forget the name of the first coach he had in Toronto, but he said, the coach didn't give me any structure. The coach did not help me out in the way that I needed to be helped out. It was kind of a sink or swim mentality. Hey, young man, I don't want you here anyway. You're a high school kid, so I'm not going to give you the structure. I'm not going to assist you in those ways because you just got to figure it out. Now, granted, there are times on the court and even times in life, figure it out is simply the way that things have to be done. You can't go away from that. However, when that is the case and you have to be able to just figure things out, if you're 19, 20, you're dealing with men that are 28, 30, 32, sometimes 34 years old, 10 plus years older than you. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit hard for you to figure it out because these guys in their free time, they're going out, going to bars, going to clubs, going to get those drinks. And you're like, hey, y'all, I'm a little bit younger. I can't do those things that you guys can do. I cannot be somebody that is doing those things. Why? I'm just too young. And so when it comes to the structure that Tracy McGrady lacked his rookie year, the Raptors ended up firing that coach, got a new coach in, and that coach said, hey, do these things. And Tracy McGrady flourished. It started to get better and better and better because of the structure that he had. Think about your life. Think about mine. We all have structure with things that we go through. With Liddell, with his skill set, offensive versatility, defensive versatility, being able to guard different positions, being able to really be a force when it comes to being a presence down low, even though he does stand at 6'7" is what I saw at one point. I thought he stood at 6'6", which was what I believed, but the site that I recently saw, sportsreference.com, had him listed at 6'7". But the defensive versatility, the ability to guard different players on the defensive end, being able to be a better perimeter defender, a better low post defender. These are all the versatility that he brings. It's huge for an NBA franchise where versatility is key right now with that brand of basketball. But regardless of his versatility, regardless of the things that he brings to a basketball court, one thing I do believe that will help Liddell is structure. Going from college where I have class at this time, I have practice at this time, I have weights at this time, I have study table at this time, I have to be in the training room at this time, I need to be in the ice tub at this time, I need to be here for shoot around at this time. Your whole entire day is structured. Your coach is telling you with detailed information on things you need to work on to prepare for the next game and so for you to get better. Get to the NBA, it's a different animal. I mean, we all know how it was when we were youngsters and we're getting better. I mean, we were getting better and transitioning to the next phase of life. We had to create our own structure. Sometimes the structure that we thought we had previously, it's like, oh, we don't need that. Yes, we do. Liddell needs structure. I'm going to be very curious to see how that structure comes to him once he's in the National Basketball Association. Versatility that he brings is great. Another great thing is the structure he'll need to be successful in the National Basketball Association. From Liddell going to the league and EJ Liddell being a player that brings different things, a different skill set, a specific skill set to an NBA franchise, he's going to leave some big shoes to fill in Columbus. Chris Holtman's to-do list has already been extensive. It's been long. It has been something that everybody has been saying, I got a list for Chris Holtman. I got a list here, honestly. I was planning on talking about the things that Ohio State basketball can do to get, to get better. But with Liddell's news coming out, that's more important than the improvements that I believe Chris Holtman and the basketball team need to make. But one thing added to his to-do list, was already on there, I do believe. How do you fill the shoes of EJ Liddell? Number one, I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. It's not going to be done. It's not going to be done overnight. Liddell was a 3-year basketball player in Columbus. EJ Liddell was a player that you knew what you were going to get with him when he first got to campus, knowing that he was the Mr. Basketball, 2-time Mr. Basketball at Illinois. So you know that bad boy could hoop. You know he could put the ball in the basket. You know he wasn't going to shy away from the big moment. But it's not just that. First thing you got to realize is there's a leadership gap. There's a leadership hole that's going to be there. And how do you fill that hole, that void, when you have Liddell leaving? It's just going to take time. If you think Malachi Branham's going to be that guy, maybe, but nobody knows if he's going to be in Columbus next year. If you think Eugene Brown III is going to be that guy, I have not seen anything from Eugene Brown to make me want to think he's going to be that guy next year, but it could happen. Do I think Zed Key is going to be that guy, that leader that Ohio State needs? I have not seen that from from Zed Key just yet. So I don't know if that's going to be Zed Key's way to make a different impact on the game. I don't know. I have no idea. And so the leadership aspect, it's going to take time. You can't just sit here and say, hey, you. Wait, who? Hey, you. Hey, you. Just pick up a random guy, pick a name out of a hat. Hey, you. No, you're not going to do that. Sometimes players have that leadership quality in them already that they've been able to express previously in their life. And the next thing you know, they're expressing that thing now, and you didn't expect it. Sometimes you expect it from players, and they just don't have it. I say the player that had it previously, because the player that had it previously gets to Columbus, and sometimes they just don't show that leadership quality. They hide that, put it in their bag, in the bottom of it, and they don't really come out and show they could be a leader. Some guys, they're going to be somebody that you don't expect to be a leader. They've never been a leader before, and all of a sudden at this level, with their own maturity, they mature to be a leader that Ohio State needs on their team. So there's a leadership quality that you need to have. Sometimes you could work on that in the offseason. Sometimes it's just instantaneous. It's spontaneous. You don't know what's going to come, and it just shows up, and it sticks throughout the rest of the season. But when it comes to the offensive versatility and the defensive versatility, I think one thing you need with the guys going to fill the shoes of EJ Liddell, you preferably want it to be somebody that's going to be there for a couple of years. Now, like I mentioned, Malachi Branham with the points, with the defense that Liddell brings, with the ability to destroy his defenders. That's a better word. At different levels of on offense, Branham can do that. But can Branham do that consistently next year? Will Branham be there consistently next year? You're losing Kyle Young, who's been a leader. You're losing Justin Arns, who's been a leader. You're losing Jabari Wheeler, who did a phenomenal job of leading this year. You're losing Cedric Russell, who was not the leader and didn't get the offensive contributions that many people thought that he should, or the time on the court that many people thought he should. However, you're losing, I think, 6 or 7 guys on this team. It's going to take time. It's not going to be an overnight process. It's not going to be something that you say, that guy right there, I'm going to pinpoint him. He's going to be our leader. But he might be the right guy for the job. But to think that he's going to instantly be that guy right now, that's not the case. It's going to take time. Think about you in the job that you currently work right now. I don't know where you work. I have a couple jobs, and so there are different leadership qualities or aspects that may be needed for one that's not the other. I've been in leadership roles in certain places previously, and so there are different skill sets that are needed at different jobs. But when you're a leader at your job, a lot of times the leader you are, of course, this is almost automatic. The leader you are 6 months after becoming that leader or being in that leadership position, may it be a promotion. That's not the guy you were day 2, day 3, day 5. It takes time. It's also going to take time for Chris Holtmann to get used to not having Liddell there. Because in crunch time, because when he needed somebody to be a leader, when he needed somebody to step up, he knew Liddell could be that guy. Things take time. Life takes time. And with all that being said, don't expect this to be an overnight fix. Said it a few times. I'll close this segment out with that. Don't expect it to be an overnight fix, because that's an expectation that if we have, or that if you have, you might not like the results. Guys, it's a Monday show here. A little bit colder than we expected it to be, or we wanted it to be outside, but we all know spring is here. We will have good, crisp, warmer weather very, very soon. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can also send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. I also want to thank you once again for making Locked On Buckeyes your first to listen every day. Now make your second listen. This is the perfect time to do so. The Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Ryan Tracy and former NFL defensive back Eric Crocker bring the NFL draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your fine podcasts. For this Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, I'm your host, Jay Stevens. We're out tomorrow planning on talking about some ways the Ohio State basketball team can get better over the next few months.